How can you protect an underground garage from heavy rain and flooding? This is part 2.
Flood Protection Secrets, the podcast to the protection against heavy rain and flooding by Dr. Flood, Andreas Klippe.
So the big challenge is, how can house owners like you and me get a flood-free home? How can business managers like you and me get a flood-free company? And how can public servants provide flood-free critical infrastructure and livable cities?
Flood Protection Secrets, the podcast by Dr. Flood, Andreas Klippe. This podcast is for foresighted and proactive people who do not want to shovel the muddy water out of their room while standing in the midst of the disaster.
Therefore, those who design and plan, the architects and engineers, need to construct such buildings and cities, and that even when the entire environment is completely flooded. That is the challenge, and this podcast will give the answers.
Flood Protection Secrets, the podcast by Dr. Flood, Andreas Klippe.
Yeah, welcome back. Most probably you have listened to part 1. That was one of the recent episodes here at the Flood Protection Secrets podcast. How can you protect an underground garage from heavy rain and flooding? This is part 2 today. In part 1, I talked about the different materials. I called it, what was my title? Subtitle, cheap or functional, exactly. And I talked about the different materials: wood, plastic, metal. Wood, I've said it's no way, it doesn't work at all. If you want to know why, please listen again to part number 1. Plastic, in my eyes, is not a solution because that is like a toy. I explained several examples how cheaper plastic applications do not work and are damaged within a short time after your purchase. And so you should not put the safety of your family, of your employees, of your car park in the hand of cheap plastic parts that might not withstand the impact of water pressure. And I said, imagine the Incredible Hulk who is boxing against a metallic wall. Even the metallic wall might be damaged. And this is the reason why the material number 3, metallic, metal like steel and aluminum, is used for modern flood barriers. And they are, it's not only a metal sheet, because then think about the Incredible Hulk, he will damage it, because we have to deal with hydrostatic pressure. Hydrostatic energy that is related to the height of the water column. That is when you stand in a swimming pool up to your head. So then what you feel in your ears, or when you are diving, what you feel in your ears, that is the force created by the water pressure. And the deeper you go, the more pain you feel in your ears. But that is not only the whole truth. We also have to deal with the kinetic energy. And that is what you observe when you are at the beach and you are inside the water and you enjoy, perhaps with your kids, the waves. And you jump inside, or you simply try to stand and to withstand the power of the waves, and I guarantee you will not do that unless it is a very small wave. But normally the power of the wave is so huge that you cannot keep your position. You are falling. But luckily, in water it's not that dangerous. However, that is exactly the force that will hit your flood barriers. And the question is, how safe is everything? What is behind? Because you want to protect your property, the lives of the people, Might they be employees, family members, or visitors? People. And of course, you want to protect the car park, for instance. We talk about an underground garage. So, how about the functionality? I said already the normal garage entrances for these underground car parks measure between 5 meters. That is good for 2 cars, but that is very narrow already. Then you don't have any pavement at the left, at the right side. So very often there are 6 meters and or 8 meters or 10 meters. Depending on which type of garage you have and whether you have 1 lane or 2 lanes. Means it's not only the lane, it is more, is it a one-way entry, for instance, and sometimes the exit is at the other side of the location, depending on the environment and on the location. So today we talk about the functionality. And my subtitle is Functional or Complicated. And so you can have first or choose between 2 barriers. These are the so-called demountable flood barriers and automatic flood barriers. And I will talk about that. I must distinguish a little bit more, because at the end of the day, it depends on the mode of operation. And so we must be a little bit more precise. So the first ones are the manual ones, but I call them, because manual is also a thing. What is manual? A door is also a manual flood barrier, correct? That means because you need manpower for that. And that is the operation. A demountable flood barrier, these stackable aluminum beams, you need manpower to insert them. And they are very, very sturdy. As just to give you an example, and imagine or remember the Incredible Hulk from my example before. If you hit 1 thin piece of paper, I think it's no problem. You can you just your finger will go through this paper. You will damage it totally, of course. So 1 DIN A4 page, for instance, you hold it in front of you and then you take your finger and you try to make a hole inside. So it's relatively easy if somebody is holding the paper. Imagine now you have a telephone book. That is already more complicated, you will definitely break your finger because you are not able to do that unless your name is Karate Kid. But even with a finger, I think Karate Kid will face some problems. So that means it depends on how sturdy the barrier is. Not only how thick. The thickness is one thing, yes. In our case, the RSD model flat barriers that we are using, they measure 57 millimeters. That is almost 6 centimeters thickness of the barrier type. The thinner ones, there are also thicker ones. They are even almost twice the thickness. That is used for demountable flood barriers up to 4.50 meters, for instance. That has been installed in Canada recently by Flood Control Canada. Another part that is important for these demountable flood barriers is the thickness of the metal sheet. And they are made by aluminum. Now, I said before, steel is possible, but demountable flood barriers in steel, they are too heavy. You cannot handle anymore. That is why that if you see that on the market, don't take it for serious. You will never use at the end of the day because they are too heavy. A customer of us said us to one time because he wanted to buy new demountable flood barriers, and I said already, but you have already flood barriers, okay, from another company, and they bought it 10 years ago, and they said yes, but we are never using them. They are too heavy, and they are damaged already, too complicated. They have these knobs. You must turn them all 200 millimeters. They are broken already. They have stiff edges, but they are too heavy. Nobody is touching them. I said, but you prefer to be flooded? It's too difficult to install. Yeah, that's it. That is because somebody was not taking the right decision 10 years ago. Luckily, today we know a little bit more. So it is also important which material, of course. So it is aluminum for the demountable flat barriers. The thickness of the barrier, in my case, our barriers that I recommend are 57 millimeters thick, and the thickness of the metal sheet. So it should be 3 millimeters or 5 millimeters at the thickest part. That is the metal. Now you can have, and sometimes people say, oh, the flat barrier is expensive. I have a cheaper one. And then you measure and you realize it's half, the thickness of the barrier itself is half of our barrier quality made in Germany, as an example. And the thickness of the metal sheet is also half. It's only 2 millimeters. That is like this thin paper of DNA4, what I mentioned before, and you want to stick a hole inside. You want to make a hole inside with your finger, compared to a telephone book. So of course, this one page of paper is cheaper than the whole telephone book, because in a telephone book you have 200 pages inside or even more. And that is the difference. So these were demountable flat barriers, and I said for the operation there are also other manual flat barriers. Manual means manually operated, and manually operated is a flat barrier that can be opened by a flat door. Is a flat door or a flat gate, for instance, and you need manpower to open it, to swing it. It's a swinging door or a swinging gate. That is a manual one. Or demountable flat barriers, you must staple them. You must insert them into slotted side channels. Yeah, okay. We distinguish between the functionality, that is demountables, for instance, and doors and gates. And perhaps I have to put that here. Yep. So I will take a note here on my script. Now we come to the automatic ones. That is a functionality. But for the operation, it is not fully automated sometimes. It is semi-automated. That means somebody is sitting in a control center and is turning a key to open or to operate the flat barrier. A flip-up flat barrier, for instance, that is hidden in the base, in the ground, in the asphalt, in the concrete. That is of course not good when I get a phone call here in the middle of my recording. I must do that a little bit later. Sorry, I don't know whether you heard that. You see, you should always be prepared for the unexpected. And that is true for flood protection, but it is also true for recording a podcast like what I'm doing right now. So I was not prepared perfectly because I didn't turn off my smartphone. Oh, shame on me. Let's go back to this semi-automatic flat barrier that can be operated from a control center. That is possible, and that was done in one of the huge manufacturing sport car areas in Germany, and in Stuttgart by our German partner. They are Stepanek KG. They are based in Limburg, north of Frankfurt, these barriers can be operated from a control center. For a normal car park, an underground basement parking, underground garage, in the Middle East, in Southeast Asia, in India, in Korea or in Japan, or wherever, even in America, it doesn't play any role where you are. So it is completely independent of the country, more or less. It only depends on the people that are available and on the level of education. So I suggest to use flat barriers that might work in an automatic way, driven by a sensor or driven by the water. So there are different possibilities how you can trigger them that they work. But they work without you. They work without manpower. When the water is high enough, then they open. And or open means no, it's not open. They operate. They close the gap, and that is the difference between the manual ones. For 10 meters underground garage and demount with flood barriers, you need manpower. And now I ask you one question. How about the speed when the heavy rain and the flooding is approaching? How fast are you able to install these flood barriers? And do the people know exactly what to do? Are they trained? That is why I always recommend to renew the flood marshal training that we offer, that I recommend that the people are at least once or twice a year trained. And the thing is, who are the people? The people are in a company, are coming and going. People leave a company, people are on sick leave, people are on vacation, people are on night shift while you need them on during day shift. And the thing is that you put all the safety of your investment in the hands of these people. And you can imagine that the speed when the heavy rain and the flooding is approaching is not really high, and they might do some mistakes. And then suddenly the safety is limited, is reduced, and especially when safety is needed to protect lives and properties. So you gamble a little bit with your properties, that is one very important thing, and that at the end leads you to the price. And I always say, of course, you can invest in something cheap, like what I explained in part 1 of this title, How Can You Protect an Underground Garage from Heavy Rain and Flooding? I gave this example of these cheap lights in a cabinet when I want to find my dark blue or black socks. But the people who know me, I don't do that anymore because I'm wearing the orange socks. I'm the guy in orange all the time. But I'm German, not Dutch. No, that is what happens very often, that you cannot distinguish the dark blue and the dark black in the morning in your cabinet if you want to take out one pair of socks for the day. And that is why I have installed these small lights. You can attach them with a kind of it's not glue, it's a kind of rubber there, and you can remove it if you don't like it anymore, so you don't damage your wooden cabinets. And these things are relatively cheap, and all the time I have to change these batteries, and then after a while they even don't work anymore, and I must replace them because they were cheap. That's it. And now I ask you the final question when it comes to flood protection. About your investment. We said already the material, wood, no. Plastic, no. Metal, yes. Yeah? For some applications, for heavy duty sliding gates or heavy duty gates, it is steel or drop down barriers, for instance, or aluminum. Very often aluminum is used because it's lightweight, but depending on the dimensions and the functionality. And the functionality is you can staple barriers like demountable flood barriers or mobile flood barriers to protect the underground garage, or doors and gates. Doors don't work because the opening gap is too huge. Gates is possible with lift-hinged floodgates, but for an opening width of 8 meters, you already need 2 gates with a middle post in the middle, what normally should not be the problem. And then you must think about the swinging space you need and the parking position of these gates. And number 3 are these automatic flood barriers. They work with electricity, hydraulics, and pneumatics. They work in an automatic way. However, we call it automatic, but the operation is a little bit more precise. That it can be semi-automatic or automatic. Operation is manual barriers, so you need manpower. Semi-automatic, it works by turning a key. You need a control center. Or fully automated, that is when you use the power of the water, that means the height of the water, and then you can operate these flood barriers. So the question now is how educated are the people if you want to go for the manual barriers, or do you immediately go for automatic barriers? And I tell you, I would always go for a flat gate if it is possible, but then you still need manpower, but it is very fast to close. Or you go for an automatic system. You go for an automatic system like a automatic flip-up flat barrier or an automatic drop-down flat barrier. These two barriers are the most convenient ones. Because you need safety when safety is needed to protect the lives and the properties. And now think about the price, speed, safety, and price. If you want to go from from A to B, it's an example. If you want to travel from your home to the next supermarket, and you don't want to walk, so you need something with wheels, a vehicle in a way. So you can take a bicycle. Well, that brings you from A to B. That brings you to your supermarket. Now you can purchase your things. You go home with your bicycle, no problem. Or you use a car. Then you can use a very old car without airbags, and then you can use a car with airbags and with all these features to make this car safe and sturdy. And in case of an accident, what do you think will happen with your bicycle? Oh, better we don't explain that. You can imagine it very well. Yeah. So you are the weakest person in the street, and you will certainly lose against any other car. But a car without airbags, you most probably damage your head as well, because you don't have airbags, depending on the impact. With airbags, you are relatively well protected. However, it will not protect you 100%. That is why people are still injured and or even die inside the car. Yeah, and but it gives you more safety. And now the question is, what is cheaper? If you decide for the price, go for the bicycle. But you pay with safety. And you pay with speed, because the bicycle is not as fast as a car is. The flat barriers should be installed as fast as possible in the same way. So then, instead of the manual ones, or the demountable ones, go for a manual, for a gate, for instance, or go for a lift-hinge flat gate that can swing. You need one person only, one hand, 2 fingers, or a thumb and 1 finger, or go for an automatic one, a flip-up flat barrier or drop-down flat barrier. And when it comes to the safety, then they are almost all good, because normally they are tested, they are certified, and they are tested with water impact. That is a big difference. Please do not forget that. And that at the end gives you the safety, that you withstand not only the hydrostatic pressure, but you also withstand the impact of the kinetic energy if ever an incredible Hulk is passing by and is boxing against your flat barriers. They will still be in shape and they will still work, because the thickness of the barriers is correct, the shape is correct, and the thickness of the steel or aluminum, of the metal sheet that is used, is also big enough. These things must be considered, because if you don't do that, take a bicycle, but don't complain if you get an accident and you don't survive this accident. And that is the same for your underground garage. If you want to protect it in a good way, go for that's my recommendation. There are different ways. I don't want to say, go for an automatic system. Of course, if you have the money, do that. If you have the manpower and you don't need an automatic system, then go for the demountable flat barriers, for instance, or go for a lift-hinge flat gate. Yeah. However, for all of these solutions, demountable flat barriers, lift-hinge flat gate, or an automatic system, flip-up or drop-down flat barrier, it is always a question, is it a trusted product? Because between these products, they bring you from A to B, like this bicycle and the car. But the bicycle is not the safe one. The car with airbags is. So compare the different flat barriers you consider to purchase, to install, and always think about the speed to operate them, the safety when it is needed, Don't forget the Incredible Hulk with the kinetic energy of the water and all the floating debris inside. And of course, the price. And of course, a flood barrier that has thicker material, is more sturdy, is tested and certified, and has a thicker metal sheet. The thickness of the metal sheet is bigger. Then of course this barrier is more expensive. But it is not expensive because you purchase safety. You don't purchase metal. Please, dear procurement officers, think about safety. Don't think about square meter prices. Recently I heard that, how much is a square meter price? I said, for which barrier? Yeah, in general. Can you send your price list? Sorry guys, you will never protect what is inside. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. You will not be safe. You only think about square meter prices and then you think about bicycles. But in reality, what you need, what the owner of your building needs is a car with all safety features, because we can't talk about safety. We don't talk about comfort. We don't talk about leisure. We talk about safety of people and inventory. Cars, their inventory, or the cars of the visitors. They are just cars. Okay. So I hope I could give you a small short overview about how you can protect an underground garage from heavy rain and flooding. This was part 2. If you still want to listen to part 1, go back 1 or 2 episodes and you will find it here at this Flood Protection Secrets podcast. And my golden nugget, as I've said before, is concentrate on your safety needs and not on the price per square meter. Stay safe and flood free. I wish and hope for you that you make the right decisions when it comes to your personal flood protection. And if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to this podcast channel if you haven't already. Now it only remains for me to wish you a good day. Do something with it. Maybe until the next podcast episode. I would be very happy. See you then. As always, stay safe and flood free. Your Andreas Klippe and the whole Flood Experts team.
That's it again with a new episode of Flood Protection Secrets, the podcast by Dr. Flood Andreas Klippe, German engineer, book author, and head of the Flood Experts. What can Dr. Flood Andreas Klippe protect for you? Anytime? Worldwide? Contact us or just click through to www.thefloodexperts.de/bonus. Detailed engineering, German quality, safe. Flood Protection Secrets. The secrets you'll want to unfold.
Don't forget, you're only one flood barrier away.
Subscribe to the season, and you'll never be late for an episode.